previous
This
sessions, whatever we
conference will
have.
now be recorded.
Let's take a quick recap of what are the things that we learned so far. We have been learning extensively about. So we all know what is a sales tools and what is it used, and we have been learning the Apex concepts of Apex classes, and we know how to create the data types and creating the objects, creating the classes, and with additional to that, we learned about how to create the objects and how can we access the objects, and we have been learning about uh, data manipulation language of how to query the data with using the Apex method, how to query the data and how to insert the data, and we have been discussing about the bulk operations, how we can insert in bulk and getting in bulk and all those things. And also we discussed extensively about the triggers, how we can create a trigger on the object and what are the concepts of the trigger and what are the in context variables like trigger.new, trigger.old, trigger.new map, uh, and is insert, trigger.isInsert or is update, whatever. We have extensively learned everything about the Apex triggers. And we have been doing all the hands-on exercises with all these concepts. Okay. All right. So now the next thing that I want to share with you guys is it's about the Salesforce the unit testing. Okay, so let me start off with the next thing. We have been discussing so much about creating the test classes and all that, right? I mean, creating the Apex classes and all that. Okay, with additional to that, still need to discuss about so okay, so we are writing the test classes. So let me log into my org here. Okay, so we are writing the Apex classes. We are familiar with writing the Apex classes, how to write the classes and creating the objects and how to access the methods from the objects and all those things. We learned extensively. One of the primary thing that I want to share is how are we going to do the unit testing in the programming world? Any developer must be doing the unit testing. Since you might have been having experience with the languages like Java. One of the primary language or one of the primary tool that we will always be using to do the unit testing is JUnits. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the JUnit testing. I'm just giving the quick note about what is the unit testing and all that. So basically, all the developer must do their unit testing when they are doing the development before they even release for the QA phase or internal QA or the customer QA. They always do the unit testing. So the unit testing is all about the developer who writes the piece of code, validates his code, and checks the code by himself by passing that test data to make sure that his code is working fine. And at the same time, when we're talking about the unit testing needs to be done on both the success factors as well as the failure scenarios. Okay. So the reason why I brought up this JUnit and Java and all these things is you can compare with the Salesforce. Okay. So the Salesforce itself has the testing framework inbuilt. So those are nothing but the Apex testing. The Apex itself has their own testing framework, which is called the Apex unit testing. Okay. So now you are familiar with what are we going to talk about today, and what is the unit testing, and why is it need for a unit testing? The more interesting thing about the Salesforce is the Salesforce always recommends the developer who writes the code to do the unit testing, and they do even give the coverage hey, and we can easily identify as a technical architect. I can just run the code by running the test and then say that hey, okay, this guy, the developer had done the unit testing, or the developer haven't done any of the unit testing and all that. Okay, so that's what we are going to talk about it today. We are going to just cover and discuss in depth about the Apex unit testing, how can we do the unit testing and all those things. Right. basically the Apex testing framework, right? That enables the developers to write and execute the test against the Apex classes. Like we write the code for testing, we write the unit testing code to test against the classes that we write, or even the triggers. We can test against the classes and the triggers. Okay. So, I mean, what do we need for this Apex unit testing and all that? Just because, it ensures the higher quality of the Apex code what we write. And also it tests and gives us the confident, gives the developer, gives the developer the confident or the to testify, okay, my code, or we as a developer, okay, our code meets the requirement for the next level of deployment, or it could be the deployment to the production or anything. So basically, so the testing is always the successful criteria for any of the development, right? And moreover, it is also the critical component of the development process. The Salesforce always recommends that the code coverage has to be minimum of 75% you could have done the unit testing, so that you can avoid the unexpected errors or unexpected results in the future. So that is what it is recommending, the Salesforce is recommending. But at the same time, the Salesforce itself is providing the testing framework so that it's making the developers very easy to write the test classes and test the Apex code. Okay, so it's very easy to develop the test classes and then develop the Apex code. So that is what it's more robust and it's more flexible. The framework that is inbuilt within the Salesforce itself. Okay, and also one of the key takeaways whenever you go for the interview or even for the certification related things. It can be we have the various environments, we have the sandbox environment or the developer. This is the developer org, whatever we are working on is the developer org. So the test classes can be written and executed only in the sandbox environment or the developer org. It cannot be written anywhere in the production environment. You cannot run the test in your production because it does need the test data and all those things. There is no need for the there's no need for the test data or running the test against the production. Okay, so for we have been talking about what is unit testing and what is the Apex unit test, and the Salesforce has inbuilt framework, and what is the environment we can talk about. The sandbox environment or the developer org. So these are environments that you can test test your test class. Okay. So basically, the Apex framework or Apex test. What is it lets the developer. It lets the developer to write the test class to test the Apex code. Meaning, it could be when you say Apex code, it is like Apex class and Apex method. So we need to test the Apex class. That's why we are going to write that test classes. Okay, the test classes will test the Apex class and the Apex method, whatever we write. All right. So, the other thing is one other thing that I want to tell is you can even the test classes that whatever we write, it could be we can distribute the classes to the other environment. We can just import and export, but not to the production. But it could be the developer org, or we can even just I read the test, I give it to Pratap. Hey, this is my test classes. Can you just execute in your environment? So that is possible by just uploading the packages to the platform. So and also one of the benefits, what are the benefits of writing the unit test? If it is an Apex, what are the benefits? What is the advantages? what are the advantages of writing the unit testing? Okay, so one of the key thing is like your Apex class or trigger, to make sure that Apex class or trigger are working as expected. Because this is the developer's task. I as a developer, when I write a code, I need to do the unit testing, just to make sure that whatever the class I write or the trigger I write, it has to be working as expected. Okay, so it helps the testers to run the test classes. And also, you can have a suite. What is a suite? The suite is nothing but combination of, or the combinations or additions of multiple test classes. When you have multiple test classes, if you want to combine, for example, I have a module in the real-time project. What does the module does? The module does, it updates the opportunity. Whenever my sales process is getting executed, or whenever the stage is getting updated, it updates the opportunity, right? And also it updates the contact record, and also it updates the workflow rule. So there are several pieces that are involved here, right? So when you're updating your stages in the Salesforce opportunity, so you could have a piece of test class to be written on the opportunity object, and a piece of test class that to validate and verify the whatever the updates the next stage is going to be, the contacts, and you can even test the trigger or the workflow rules or whatever. So when you're going to have multiple pieces of test, they can all be combined together and run it as a test suite. That is what the test suite means. So I will show you all of this in the developer console. I just want to give you the overview and the overall idea of what is the unit testing, what the Apex does, and what are the features of Apex unit testing, and what are the benefits of having the unit testing done, and how can we test all those. Okay, and so these are the advantages of the Apex. Okay, so even when you're just going to do a major upgrades, or when you're going for the next release, if you're having a package ready for the list of test classes for the test suite, every time before you deploy, you can just run it to make sure that your code is up to date. At the same time, say for example, you're having one additional feature, or one of the additional features that you're adding to the additional features or coming into your project, right, or coming to your enhancement. So, and then it's not that your test case, your test classes cannot run automatically. You will have to rerun your test classes. Rerun your test classes. Probably the enhancements that you write might not have the test data. You will have to enhance your test classes as well to rerun it. But you don't have to go and rerun the existing cases. Existing cases will still be there, and then you can just go and rerun it before you even release, so that you are making sure that your enhancements does not impact the existing features. The enhancements, whatever we write, whatever we develop, does not impact the existing features. So no impact to the existing features. So existing features or so these are all the benefits of having the Apex test classes and Apex test suite. Okay. And also, as I said, before you even deploy to the production, it always recommends, Salesforce always recommends to have at least minimum of 75% of Apex code to be Apex code as a tested code. Okay, which means that they're using the word called that. The Salesforce will be using the word called the coverage. All right. And so let's see, how can we write that? The next step is how can we write the test methods? Or that how can we develop the test class? What is the syntax and how are we going to write it? So then that's the next step. I hope you guys are following me. And if you have any questions, you can just type it in the chat. I just want to make a pass and then check with you guys if everything is clear or if you have any questions. Okay, I just want to check with you guys. And if you have any questions, you can just put it in the chat window so that I'm happy to answer that. Okay, all right. So now what we're going to do is now we know what is the unit testing and what is the Apex test and what are the benefits and all that. Now we are going to the next step. How can we create the test method? Excuse me. Okay. How can we create the test method? All right. So the test methods syntax, right? How can we write the test method? All right. So whenever we write the test method, there are two ways of declaring. Two ways of declaring the test method. One way of doing that is about you can do it with your annotations. We have already seen the annotations previously about we discussed about the callout, and similarly we do have another annotation called is test. Is test annotation always so whatever the callout we made, here we call it as a feature, right? Similarly, it's going to be is test. Is test annotation always tells the system that it's a test class. Okay, it's a test class. So how are we going to have this with the annotations? The syntax is going to be you can just say at is test, okay, and then you can declare your method like static void test name, and then you're going to write your piece of code. Testing code goes here. So this is the syntax for the test method. So if you see here in the last class, what we see, the annotation comes before the method, right? Similarly, in this method, you can have your annotation. Before I forget, let me tell you one more thing. So whenever you are writing the test method, there is no need for the access modifier at all. There is no need for the access modifier at all. The reason is that if you mention it as public, private, or we have already talked about during the initial stages of the sessions, what are the access modifiers? So protected or whatever, if you just write and so on, it doesn't really mean anything for the test class. It means nothing to the test class. Test classes are always visible globally and it is publicly available. So that is why I did not put anything in front of the static. The test class will always have static void. That's all. If you have your return, if you want to have your return, you can just have your return variable here like string or whatever. We have already discussed how your method can have the return value, return data type. Okay. So if you see here, I did not have any access modifier at all. There is a reason for it. There is no need, because even if you just put, it doesn't mean anything to the framework Salesforce system. It doesn't mean, it always visible public. So this is one way of having the is test as the annotation and static void test name. All right. So what is the other way of declaring the test method? Okay. What is the second method? You can simply have static test method void test name. You're always before the return type, you're going to mention it as after the static as test method. When you say test method, the system is going to identify itself that this method is the test method. This is not a regular method. This is going to be like a test method. So these are the two ways that Salesforce framework can define the unit testing method. Like you can have the static test method, and I can just write it up in a nutshell here. So like basically if you're using the annotation of at is test and the test method. So these are the two ways of declaring the test method. Okay. So it's always good practice to have the lowercase and the uppercase when I define it. Okay. All right. So these are the two ways that they're providing. Salesforce is providing to declare the test method. All right. Let's go on create the test method. So one of the tips that I want to give you guys is like like declaring the annotation is always flexible. This is more flexible than the test method. This is one of the interview questions, or like or the certification questions that might pop up. Meaning this is test and the test method. So which is of more benefit, or like which is more flexible. The reason the is test is more flexible is like you can specify the parameters in the annotation. You can specify the parameters. We will cover in the future class, or like on the later part of the session. How can we pass the parameter to the annotation? But you cannot pass the parameter here, like test method. Not the method, like when I say the parameter, you can pass the arguments here, but outside the method, you cannot have the outside the method. And what is the use of the parameters and everything we'll be discussing. So this is more flexible, right? So. And one other thing is like, the visibility doesn't matter, and it's always going to be there. Public. Lattice modifiers are ignored in the syntax when we're creating the test method. All right. So the next step is like, whenever we are writing the test method, we should always write the test method within the test class. How do you write the method? You can't just go and write a method, right, without writing the classes. How do you do it in the Apex? Apex methods always, when do you write? You write within the classes, right? You declare the class and then you write your method. So similarly, so there will be like a test class, right? Test class. So you always write your method, the test method. It has to be defined within the test classes. And interestingly, one more thing that you want to know is the classes are annotated with the same way as the method. That is why the classes will know, that is why the Salesforce will get to know, oh, okay, so this is the test class, which has all the test methods in it, right? So what is the syntax for the test class? Like, this is how the syntax goes. Like, at is test, and then we say like, the classes. You can say like, you can just even say like private class. Practice modifiers are not for the method, but you can specify for the classes. Okay, that's one of the things that you must understand, the method and the class. This might as well pop up for the interview questions when you're talking about the unit testing. So these are the key takeaways for the unit testing. The reason of this class is like just not at high level. The reason why I'm giving all those tips is like you can just capture those. Those are the areas that are beyond the basic, where you can just go on focus more, so that you can crack your interviews or like the certification and all that. Right. So whenever you declare your classes, the test classes, you'll be having like the annotation like at is test, and then your private class, like it could be even test class, something like that. And then so this is our class. This is what the class is going to be, and you're going to have your test method, right? How do we write the test method? As always, like, at is test static void maybe, and then the test method, sorry. Excuse me, test method. And you write your logic of your method. The code block for the method goes here. Code block for the method goes here. Okay. So this is your test class. So this is how you define your test class with the annotation and all that. So the next one is like, okay. So hold on. So this is the syntax for the test classes. All right. Now let's do some hands-on. Okay. Let's go and create like, how we create a test classes, and how first let's create a class, and then how can we write the test classes and how we can execute on all that. We can see it in detail. Okay. All right. So let's switch back to our so these are all the things that I was working before on the Lightning app. Okay. Don't need this. All right. So let's switch back to our developer console. Here is the developer console. And let me close all those. These are the things that we are whatever. Right. So let's go on right here. Class. Okay. So we can write any logic. Let's take as an example of one of the scenarios where we can go and write multiple tests. Let's go and see like, okay. So we are going to a class. We are going to write a class and a method which just converts the if you give the Fahrenheit, it is going to give you the Celsius. Okay. So we are going to convert like Fahrenheit to Celsius. That's an example we are taking. So your method is going to have it. You can write like any logic in the real-time scenarios, like as I said, like it could be like updating the other objects, or it could be like posting the external services or anything that you can have as a logic. For our learning purpose, we are going to have a simple Apex class. We are going to write it, which has the method to convert the Fahrenheit to Celsius, something like that. Like if it goes to new, okay. So we are going to write a new class. So we have been talking about this area so far for all these sessions that we had in the past. Okay, like Apex class. Say for example, I'm going to have like like temp convert or something like that. Like we're going to convert that temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, whatever. All right. So this is our class, and then we are going to have a method. So this method is used to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay. It takes the Fahrenheit as input value. Okay. So this is the goal of our method. Okay, right. Let's write a method. This is the regular Apex class. This has nothing to do with the test. We are writing the test class. Just we are going to write the test class. Okay. All right. So, and we are going to write a method here. Like like let's make it a static, and our method name is going to be like fh to cell, something like that. And it takes the input parameter as the Fahrenheit. So we'll just pass it in the decimal. This is the method. So Fahrenheit to decimal, usually we have a formula. We'll be having the formula of converting that. We get the FH value, and then we'll just minus by 32 degree, and then it's going to be like I think it's going to be like 5 by 9. So this is going to be your logic of calculating. Even it could be like a plus b. You can even test it with that, but let's have it as in the real-time scenarios. This is our method which is going to convert and all that, and it is going to give us the value or in the Celsius, right? And we need to declare the data type for this Celsius, which is again going to be the decimal. Okay. Let's say, for example, so this is all right. So this is the decimal value that will be given, and we need to return this. Okay. So in order to return that, then our return type needs to be modified. We are going to change the return type to the decimal. Okay. And then we are going to return the decimal value, Celsius value. So basically we get the Fahrenheit, we convert to Celsius, and the Celsius value is going to be returned. So since it's going to be in decimal, let's scale to two values. After the decimal, like if it is like 75.7492, we'll just consider as 74. Okay, we'll scale it to 2, and there is a method called scale. Scale. And we can set the scale. Let's decimal to decimal. Let's scale it to just the 2. Okay, meaning 2 digits, 2 positions after the decimal. All right. So this is our simple class that we wrote with our problem, with our method. Method does this. In the real-time scenarios, as I explained, you get the parameters. Now we have seen a lot of real-time scenarios in the past, to update the related records or to update the values or to do your math and all these things. So these are all imagine this is your logic. You can have all your logic in the method in your FX code. All right. Now let's go and create a test class. How can we write the test class for this FX class? We need to test this code. How do we do that? That's our goal. There's no compilation errors. Okay, cool. All right. So now we are going to write the test class for it. Okay. Now we go file, new. All right. Now we can even just go to the test here. Yeah, we go here test. We always have been using this run asynchronously, or we have been doing the open execute anonymous windows. That's why we are doing all the testing so far. So whenever we click on this, it's going to be the window pop up, and we'll be doing all this development and everything, right? So now we need to write the test class. How are we going to write the test class? Okay, we are going to write a test class. We can just click on this, we need to execute the test class, and then we need to run the test class. Okay. So how to create the test class? Okay. All your test class always going to be always we are going to run it with this test options. But now we need to write the class, another class. What the class is? That is the test class. We need to write the another class, which is the test class, right? As I said before, let's go back here. We have been talking about the test class. We have been talking about the test methods and the syntax and all these things. Okay, to test the Apex code. Now we have the Apex code here. How do we write the test class? Same way, however we write, we have to go to the file, new Apex class. Okay, I'm just going to create another class, which is the test class, right? like temp. I can, to make it more clear, I'll write like temp convert test. Okay. You see here, this is just the temp convert, and I'm writing the test class for this. Okay, temp convert test. It could be anything. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And then I'm just going to, this is what the key thing is. I'm just going to say at is test, which means that this is the test class. Okay. And then I'm going to write all my methods here. First, let's start with, like, we can write all our methods here, like, how do we test it? Right. So, one of the things that we need to do is we need to write the test method now. And I already discussed you about, like, how do we write the test methods. So this is the syntax to write the test methods, right? We saw it in two ways. How do we write the syntax? Okay, let's start off with the annotation. Let's go back to the developer console. Now I'm going to write my test method. At is test. Okay, static. I mean, it could be next line or it could be the same line. It doesn't matter. And we just say, like, void. And we're going to write a method. We have to put the name for the method. Like, we can test, like, like let's say, like, let's test the normal temperature or something like that. Normal temp. Okay. And we are going to give you the Fahrenheit, and it has to give us the result. Okay. So, like, so when we're going to, so this is the code block to test the normal temperature. Okay. How do we trigger that? This method, we have to call this test class dot method name, right? That's how we initiate. That's how we trigger the test method. Test class, sorry, the Apex class name dot method. We have to pass the argument as the Fahrenheit, and then what it will give? It will give us the Celsius, right? Let's just put the decimal Celsius here, and to get this value. Okay, so we have to pass the argument. Like, let's bring up the calculator here. Say, for example, if I'm going to put like 80 as an example, 80 minus the logic here is about like minus 32 times 5 by 9. I'm putting like 80 minus 32 times 5 divided by 9 equal to something like 26. Okay, we have a scale to 2 digits, so 26.66. If you pass the value 80, and it will give us the value like 26.66, right? 26.66. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, we as a tester developer, we know, like, we simply calculated with this manually, but our code has to return this value. This is what the test is all about. We are going to write a test class for testing this class and this method. Okay. We know that now, okay, so if you pass 80, this is the value that should come, which means that your code is going to work perfectly, right? So what I'm telling is, like, okay, I go here, system dot. So far we have been using extensively system.debug to all this statement check and all this. There is something called asset. Asset equals, which means that it takes two arguments and it compares, like, is it equal to this? For example, 26.66 comma, this Celsius, which returns the true. Like, it will return the true value. If not, it is going to return the false. If not, it will return, okay. If not, it will return the message. We'll come back to that later. I'll talk to you about that scenario as well. So now I wrote a test class. This is the class. And I wrote a test method, and I'm going to check the normal temperature. I'm just passing this 80, and it should give me this. If it gives this, which means that this class, whatever this piece of code I wrote, is perfectly working perfectly. If it gives something else, then it's going to be a problem. Okay, we'll talk about it, a negative scenario as well. All right. So similarly, I'm going to for this temperature converter, I converted the normal temperature. Like, for example, I want to test various scenarios. Like, I want to test, for example, when it converts, we can even have the freezing, right? Freezing temperature, right? Like, that could be a test for the freezing temperature. When it's the freezing temperature, we'll be always passing like 32. So, which means our logic here is 32 minus 32, which will give the 0. Anything multiplied by 0 is going to be always 0, right? So we have to pass the 32, which means the output has to be a 0. If it comes 0, then our code works fine. This test method, whatever we write it, if you pass the argument as 32, and if the output is 0, the Celsius is coming as 0, then it is going to map. And if it has no, if it passed, then which means that if you get the 0, which works. So this is like another test scenario we are handling it, testing the freezing temperature by passing 32. And one more thing is like, okay, let's also test the boiling temperature. An example, like, boiling temperature. In order to have the boiling temperature, I think like it's going to be like close to, I think what is coming as 200 minus 32 into 5 by 9 equal to 93. Okay, 93. So it has the boiling temperature is 100, right? So if you have 100, which means the boiling temperature is fine. So we need to pass at least like 210 minus 32 equal to 5 9 equal to 98. Okay, so it has to be like okay, minus 32 equal to 99.94. Okay, so I passed like 211, right? Okay, I think it has to work. All right. 32. Our output should be 100 times 5 9 equal to, okay, perfect. So if you pass it as 2 and 2, our output will be 100, which we are going to test the boiling point. Always the 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point. And this is like normal, 26.6 Celsius is normal. And the freezing point is like a 0. And we're testing that. And we could even test something like the negative. What happens when there is a negative value comes in, right? And we are writing another test method. If you see here, I'm writing one test class and multiple test methods. Okay. And this is like a negative temperature or something like that. Test negative temperature, right? Then I'm passing like minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. What will be the value for minus 20? Okay, so it's going to be like minus 28.88, right? Minus 28.88. Okay, so I have all this test. Okay, this is my test class. Let's see if I have any problems. Okay, no completion errors. So it's saying that, okay, so I have to test this class and I'm writing the piece of code, which is the test class to test the. Oh, hold on a second. I have to plug in my power cord. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. All right. Right. So I guess able to follow me so far. So this is my test class to test this piece of code. Okay. And my test class is annotated with this test, and I have all the test methods. And I'm passing various argument values. What happens if I pass 80? What happens if I pass 32? What happens if I pass 212? What happens if I pass minus 20? So meaning to check the different situations, different scenarios, and what is the output, and I should check the output here. So this is what it is. Okay. Now let me go and it's testing. We have created all these methods to test the code. Okay. Let's go and run. How do we run the test class? So that's the next step. Right. Okay. So now what we did was we created a class with method with some business logic. Has some business logic. Okay. The next step was created a test class test methods with various scenarios. And the step 3 is going to be running the test class. Executing and running the test class. Okay, how do we run the test class? So that's the next step. All right. So let's go to the developer console, and we have this test class here. And one of the key thing that I want to tell you before I even do this is if you go to the class, if you see the code coverage, there is a code coverage is none. Okay, we haven't covered any of this code at all. So that is why you see this code coverage is none. Okay, there's only none here because we haven't covered any of this code. So Salesforce framework is very smart in telling that how much you have tested your code. I as an architect, I just start by the developers when I see that code coverage is none, then which means that the developer haven't done any other unit testing. Right? So that's what I just want to specify related to the test, whatever the Salesforce is providing. So you might have seen this. Okay. The next one is this is the test class. Okay. Now we need to run the test class on the test methods. Okay. Let's do this. Let's go and click the test and then have it as a new run. Okay. When I go to the new run, I can tell which class that I'm going to test. What is my test class? I can always say this is my test that I'm going to run, right? When I'm selecting this test class, it is going to ask, what are the methods? This class has so many test methods. What are the test methods that you need to run? Either you can run all the test methods or you can run just one test method. Okay. I'm going to tell okay, I'm going to run all the test methods, all methods selected. or otherwise, if you just tell this is the only method that I'm going to test all those things, it will tell. So when I'm running a new run, it is going to ask what are the test classes? So these are the test classes that is available in my org. So it's going to tell these are the test classes, and these are the test method that is available as part of the class. And then I selected all this. All you need to do is just click on run. It runs successfully. Okay. All right. Now you might wonder hey, what is the purpose of this? It runs and what does it do now? Okay. In order to see the output of all those tests, you have to use the test tab, the developer console. So this is the developer console that we are using, a test tab. Here is the test tab, right? I just ran the test run at 8:56, and then you can see it here. All of those. There are two things that got failed. And there are two things that got success. Test boiling temperature. Okay. Boiling temperature and the freezing temperature got success. Like if there's a boiling temperature 212 I passed, I get this 100, and if it's -20, I get this. Okay. All right. So the test negative and the normal temperature did not pass. Okay. So when I say this, okay. So which means that it throws some exception and then it got failed. Okay. Let's take a look. What is the problem with the test class? I think whatever we just wrote with the code, that might be having the value difference in the value, so for example, okay, so the freezing temperature, and I think this one is also fine, right? So, and what happens what is the value for the what is the value for a -10? Sorry, hold on. Okay. Equal to into 5 divided by 9, 21.11. Okay. Okay, I think I had those values wrong, so that's why I just updated the value here, and it gave this properly. Okay, you see it here now, like whatever I updated the value, so it came. When you are passing the 70, whatever the value comes, whatever the 32, the 0, whatever the value of 2, it's a boiling point of 100. Whatever this -10, whatever the value we give, it is like 23.33. So it got success to all of this. So now if you see, the important thing is I just ran this and then I got the test results, right? So here are the test results, 859. I got all of these. So the overall code coverage, they will give you the overall code coverage here in Salesforce, where you can go and see all your test classes. See, there are 0%, and we haven't run any of these things against this. Okay. So if you go to your class, what is your class name? Temp convert, right? Temperature convert. Let's see in the here temp convert. You see it? That's 100%. And It even tells you, okay, hold on, I have my GoToMeeting stuck here. Let me pull it up the top. Okay. So if you have a convert, you cover this code 100%. And it even tells you like, how many lines of the code it got executed. So all we are having is just 3 lines of code. So that's the power of Salesforce to run through all the lines. It even tells you like, how many lines of code and how many lines of code it got executed and how many it got done the code coverage. Like, okay, when you go to this class, okay, you go here and see 100%. So it just tested with all your test classes with the 100%. When you do the all test 100%, it even highlights. You see it here. I did not do anything. I'm not highlighting here. If I highlight, it is going to be in a different color. Okay. Even if I just click on anywhere, your highlight is still available. Your highlight is always available, which means that all of these lines have been tested. All of the lines that has been highlighted. When I'm highlighting this here, it is highlighting in this color. So all of these lines has been tested. The Salesforce is such a robust framework which tells the developer that, oh, okay, you have tested all of this piece of code and it is all successful. All the tests are like 100%. And you have tested, meaning it gives you all the scenarios. It doesn't know like, it gives whatever it is. Even if you test by one method, it will give you the value and all the things will be 100%. Okay. Let me tell you, think of a scenario if you're having like if else condition. Okay, think of a scenario if you have, okay. So before even I get there, is it all clear so far? Any doubts? Any questions? Is it all clear so far? Like say for example, if I just go and like for example, let's talk about another negative scenario, right? Instead of 12, instead of 100, if I'm just checking like 0 is not equal, but it is going to return 100, but I'm checking against 0 equals Celsius, which is false, right? My test should fail only on this method, like boiling point method. It should not fail other things. It should fail only on the boiling point method. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to test rerun successfully. Okay. When I'm going to the test, it gives me, okay, I can even minimize all of this. My final, this one is all, it gives this cross mark, which means that I have some failures. I can go and take a look. See, I got gosh, I have to expand this photo. Okay, now it is visible. Yeah, now it is visible. So see here, my boiling point got failed. The test boiling point, that's where I got the failure, which means it gives the assert exception. Assert exception, meaning this is not equal to this. Okay, this is not equal to this. 0 is not equal to Celsius. Celsius is coming as 100, and we are checking against Celsius against 0, which is false. This is not equal to this variable. So in that case, there is another argument that we can pass to the assert equals. So by this way, you can even learn like assert equals. Assert equals can take 2 arguments, or even it can take like 3 arguments. Like I can just pass something like this is not the boiling point temperature expected for the given FH. Okay. Given Fahrenheit, this is not the value expected. Okay. I'm just writing this. Assert equals can take another argument. Okay. Because when it fails, this is going to display this message. That's what it is. This argument is all about. Okay. If it is like true, then we are good with these 2 statements. If it is false, this is going to be displayed. So that is what this assert equals another argument is all about. I'm saving it. That's a problem. Okay, unrecognized variable. All right, all good now. Okay, let's test it now. Test, rerun. I'm running this. I go to the test. This failed. And I go here. I get the boiling point. The boiling temperature failed because of this exception. See, it even gives the message, right? So this is not the boiling point temperature expected for the given Fahrenheit. Whatever the message that I gave, it came. Okay, and it tells like expected is 0, but the actual is 100. So when you're using this asset exception, when you're using the asset equals, it tells like what it comes, but what you're checking against. So it is so powerful, and it tells you exactly like it is expected to be 0, but the actual is 100. What you're expecting is not coming, so it has to come actually the 100. So which you can go and debug on all this. This is the negative scenario that I want to explain you. Like during the situations, you can just check and you can validate, and then you can fix your code, or you can even pass the right argument. Okay, is it all clear so far? Any questions? Let's take a pass here. Let's take me a pass here and ask you guys. All good? Okay, cool. Hope you guys are enjoying it. All right. So that is how you can write the unit testing. Okay. As I told you, like now it is all good. Like we are just doing the test coverage of 100%, and even this is like see, whenever you just click on it, it gets highlighted. All of this code has been highlighted and all that. All good. Okay, this is kind of boring. The one more thing that I want to tell you is like, why is it like all 100%? Because this class has 3 lines of code and your method. This class, so basically the class itself, has like 3 lines of code, and all of these 3 lines have been executed. Right? What if it has some conditions of? I mean, you might end up with so many scenarios of so many conditions, like if else kind of thing, Like you'll be having the if else and all those things, right? Let's take an example of having such a situation. Like what is the code coverage is going to be. So I just want to teach you like how the code coverage is calculated, and how the code coverage can be what makes a difference, and what the Salesforce can give the developers. Tell the developers, hey dude, you have been testing this and you have not tested this line of code, something like that. Let's take a simple example. Okay, so I mean, one more tip is like whenever you want to use the test, you can even just go and do the new run, or like when you go on when you just use these options like test, you can have a new run, select the class, select the methods and all that. The rerun is nothing but it is going to run whatever the test class that you are in, and you can just rerun only the failed test. Whatever the failed test, you can fix it. And say for example, I just go here and I can fix it like this is the 100. Save it, and I can even just return only the failed tests. So it gives all boiling point is passed now, and all this are passed. There's no failure here. The latest one is here at 909, and I'm having like 909, and I'm seeing it like I'm testing only the failed test. This was the only thing that was failed in the previous test, and it failed, and now it is passed. Okay. So I just want to give you like what are the useful things that you can do it here in terms of test when we are talking about the unit testing. And run all is going to just run all the tests that is available across all the code testing classes that are available across your org. That's the run all about. Like if you're just going to click run all, so it's going to be in the queue, and it is giving completely different scenarios, and something passed, something failed, and all this, and you can go and see all these things. Okay, that is about the run all. All right, so these are the features that is available as part of the test tabs, where you can go and test your unit testing. This is very important feature as part of the developer. I don't know if most of the trainer will be training this or not, but I'm just telling that whenever, because whenever you develop the code, you need to do the unit testing, right? So that kind of thing, that interview questions are like, there will be a lot of um, uh, certification questions as well when you're taking up the certifications for the developer, right? And let's see, like, let's see, like, let's take,
Hello, Karthik.
hello, hey.
This is Pratap, Karthik. I
Yes,
just
yes.
had one doubt.
Uh-huh.
Like
Your
if
voice is
the yeah,
your voice is low, Pratap.
1 second.
Now it is better. It's getting better. Yeah,
Yeah.
now it is better.
Okay, it is
Go ahead.
better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If the test scenario is of inserting a data,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So if you're writing a test class in the background, will those records insert in real?
No, it will not.
And
All your test
it will.
data, I was about to tell that in later point. Okay. All
Yeah.
your test data is not persistent into the database at all. It's not even getting
Okay.
into the database. All your test data is only for that particular session. That's all. And it's getting rolled back immediately. When your test, when your test is completed, it is going to be rolled back. Nothing is getting into the database at all.
Yeah, because I was afraid, like, if you're moving into
No.
production, those datas, if those datas are inserted into the records, right? So that will be
think about
difficult.
it. I mean, I just told you during the starting of this session. In the production, you cannot even run. There is no such feature. That's one thing. The second thing is, even if you're running in the lower environment, all this data is not persistent in the database. This will not even get into the database at all. All of these things will be getting into the database to retrieve the data, and then it will get rolled back immediately as soon as your test finishes.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Just for the testing purpose. Okay.
Yeah, just for the testing, purely for the unit testing. That's all the framework is all about. Just purely for the unit testing.
Fine. Okay, Karthik. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, say for example, like you are writing, like let's make some assumption, like let's write another one simple class, like file new Apex class, and we'll just making it as like just let's talk about something like task utility kind of thing, or like I can even say like task priority kind of thing with some if else. Let's try some if else condition here. Right, I'm having a class here, and then say like public static, and it's going to return the value of string, get priority, and then it's going to take like string of state. So the requirement here is, let me, even before writing the code, I'll explain you like what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to just write a class with if else condition, okay, and I'm going to write the test class, and I'm going to see like how the coverage is going to look like. We did not have any of these if conditions or else conditions here, so that is why it tells like always 100. Even if this test method goes in, it is going to call this and then pass the value and return. That's all this does, right? It gets the value, then does some logic, and it returns. So which means that all of these three things, all of the three lines of code got executed, and it tells like 100%. That is why only certain piece of code needs to be executed. That's why I'm writing the scenario. Only certain piece of code to be executed. So if you have like if else condition, like you can write it here like if Fahrenheit is like less than 20, do something, less than 30, or like greater than 30, do something else. I could just write this, but that's fine. I'm just going to write it here with some if else condition, and let's see like how the test coverage looks like. Okay, like the thing is like I'm getting the state like California or New York or Illinois kind of thing. Let's imagine like if the California comes, process the task in the higher priority. That's what it is. If the New York comes, or like if any other state comes, process the task in the lower priority or the normal priority. So that is the requirement. Okay. So this is a simple logic where you can just call your method and then does some logic and then gives the return in the value, right? So Like say for example, let's even like we can even check the valid input, right? So one of the things that we can check is like if the input is valid or not. Like if your state, whatever your state comes in, right? If your state is blank, sorry, string dot is blank. Or if this, let's say like let's have one more condition. We don't want to give the full name like California or New York full length name. We just use the code. If California means it's like CA, New York means NY, Illinois means IL kind of thing. Okay, the state code. Tamil Nadu means it's TN, or like if it is like Hyderabad means HY kind of thing. Not Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, yeah, AP kind of thing. All right. So let's take like like state dot length. We'll calculate the length. If it is length is greater than 2, we just return nothing. We need to return null. That's an example. So this is one method. If it is just we just return null. And then can even say like you can define something like string task priority. We simply say if the state is the state equal to CA, which is California in this case, then we are going to have this task priority equal to like something like high. If something else comes, let's not waste time in just writing all the equals conditions. If something else comes, let's say this task priority equal to normal. And the problem is missing the return statement. Yeah, we did not return that. Okay, here we have to, if else, we have to return this is the method. This method will return task priority. All good. Okay, we don't have a problem here. Okay, so if CA comes, return task rate is high, and if anything else comes, return is normal and return the task priority. Okay, that's all. All right. Cool. So let's write the test class for this. I'm just going to write the test class. Okay. So I mean, one of the things is like I wanted to test the case synthesis. One of the typical question that will be coming is like is the Salesforce case sensitive or case insensitive? It is case insensitive. Like if you pass the California CA or like CA or like CA, everything is the same. Okay. All right. So let's quickly write the test class here. New test class. Then I'm going to get like, it doesn't mean that you have to have the same name. I can even put write test class like priority test, something like that. Anything is fine. Okay. Always recommended to have. Okay, it's fine. Now I'm just making it as is test. This is the test class. Then I'm going to write my test method. The test method is going to be simple as is test static void test priority. I'm going to test the priority, and then in this method I'm going to call this guy. What is the class name? Task priority, right? Task priority dot method name is get priority. Get priority. I have to pass the argument. Like, I'm going to pass something like New York. The argument is New York. That is going to return the priority, right? String PR or like PRI, priority, something like that. So this is going to return this, and then I'm going to write system dot asset equals, and then I'm just going to write it has to return normal. Only the California gets higher priority, right? If it is normal, and this is the value that I'll be receiving it from the method. Simple. Any questions in the test class? Whatever I wrote, simple test class. We're just going to pass only New York. If New York comes, technically this piece of line will get executed, and it will be like normal. Okay. It's case inserted. It doesn't really matter exact value or whatever. Okay. Now I'm going to execute the test. Test. New run. I'm going to run this priority test. We have only one priority test of the method. Run. I go to the test. Here. Okay, I think one of the things that I was telling you is like, the value passing is okay, but here I think I should be having exactly whatever it returns. Let's take a look here. Test. Run. Right, exactly. So if I go to the priority test priority, I can see, okay, the test is executed. Okay. So if you see it in the test class, if I just pass yes, nys, okay, before that, let me tell you something. All right. So I pass to the New York, and it returns the normal, and then this is my statement, right? And it passed. And this is my test. This is my class, original class. If I just go and see the code coverage, test, run, I'm just going to have this priority, run. And if you see here, one of the things that I want to move this go to meeting window. Okay, so if I go this, what is my priority, right? Task, sorry, here is the task priority. Task priority. Yeah, you see it here, the task priority. See here, when I'm clicking on the task priority, the percentage is just 75. Previously, when I executed this code, it executed everything with one single method. Every single method will come here and will execute these 3 lines, right? That is why it came immediately 100%. But when I click on this task priority, see here, it will clearly tell you, it will highlight you, hey, these are the things that got executed, these are the things that did not get executed. So we have tested the normal by passing something else other than the California. But we haven't tested the high or we haven't tested the null conditions. Do you see the difference? Like, how the test or the code coverage is calculated. We have calculated the if conditions, we have skipped the if conditions. And the Salesforce is so smart in calculating that, okay, so how many cool lines of code got executed during the test and how many is not executed. So, which means that Salesforce knew the code never flow into this situation. It did not come into the if conditions. It did not come into the null conditions. If you pass, like passing a New York as a full word, it will pass here because it is greater than 2 and it is going to return the value null. Or even if you don't pass anything at all, if you just class it as blank, the state is passed as blank, it will go to this if condition. Or else if you just pass CA, it will come here to the California. Okay. So now I'm going to pass the CA. Like, when I say CA, that this equal doesn't matter, like whatever we pass it. It's a case insensitive. State equal this one. So I'm just going to pass. So okay, so far it's clear how the code coverage is calculated. I'm going to pass the test as CA, right? I'm just passing it in the lowercase. So I'm just going to pass it with the lowercase CA. So it's fine. It doesn't really matter for this assignment operator. So when we check, okay. So I'm going to run this. Test. We run. See here. Okay. Asset expressions, line number 5, column number 1. Okay. What am I passing here? Okay, which is fine. So now if I go to this code coverage as a priority task, right? Priority task. Sorry, task priority, that's my class. All right, here, right? See, now in the latest test, whatever I wrote, right? This is going through this CA, right? And it comes to this CA, whatever is here. But I need to, even then it is like 75%. In this test, I was able to execute only this through this CA. I did not go through this normal. So I think I messed up this. Okay. So which means that I need to write my test in such a way that another method I have to pass other than CA, like New York. Another method I have to pass empty. In that way, it is going to pass through this if condition, it is going to pass through this if condition, and it is going to pass through this else condition. So and then the code coverage will be 100%. If your test class is not written in such a way to handle all the situations, you will still be in 75. Okay? Are you able to follow me? The reason why it failed. Can someone tell me why it failed? This one? Like I put CA and it failed. Can someone tell me why it failed? All right. I got something in the chat. No. All right, that's fine. The reason why it failed is when it writes CA, we should not expect normal. What we should expect? We should expect a high. If we have high here, it will pass because our test method did not have the right logic. Because when you're passing as California, it should return as high. Now it will pass. This is the same thing that we had this in the temperature. I had the wrong value. Now if I go to the test and the rerun, see, it passed now. Because if you pass the CA, the value comes is high. and my priority is also returning. Whatever the class is returning is high. So high equal to high, which will be succeeded. It failed because I did not change this value. I forgot to change this value, and that is why it failed. Now, if you go, like, simply, if I just go here to my class, task priority, right? Task priority, it's still 75. Okay, this one just passed through high, and we did not pass this thing. So what I was telling you is, like, you simply write another three, so that all the lines can be executed. Okay, even if you see here, 6 out of 8 lines, only 6 lines got executed. It tells you very clearly. Total number of lines is 8, and only 6 lines got executed. What are those 2 lines that did not get executed? This test class is not testing against this method, this else conditions and this else conditions. That is why it is telling these 2 things is not tested at all. So if you go to this and pass here like CA instead of CA, if you pass it like NY, and then if I just pass something like MT, or even like California, or like even like California, if I just pass it as California, then it's going to be greater than 2, and then this will get executed. If I pass CA, high will come. If I pass something else, it will come normal. So I'm passing like NY for normal, California greater than 2, and if I'm passing this for the high priority, and I have to make sure that this is empty or null, and this should return normal, right? Let's test this now. Oh, okay. I had all the name. I literally copy pasted. So for now, I'll just make this 1. This is 2. Okay, no problem. I just copy pasted this method, same name. So that's what the problem is. All right. So if you just go and test, rerun, test, see, all the tests get passed. Okay. Now if I go on check my class, this is my original class, right? Task priority. Let's see. Task priority. Oh, okay. This is one of the problem. Whenever we write it, this is a known issue that this Salesforce has it. What they are telling is we cannot use this rerun, so we'll have to run it as new run, and then whenever we update the test classes, the test result is not getting updated. This is one of the known issue. Priority test, right? This is the priority test. I'm having all these methods. The rerun, previously we had only 1 method, right? Now we recently introduced 2 more methods. So system doesn't know, or the test doesn't know that we added these 2 methods. When we do the rerun, it is going to rerun the old one. So we have to just add all the methods and then run now. Okay. See here, now it is 100%. All of my code got executed. All of these are in blue line. Sorry guys, I'm not getting prepared and then copying, pasting and everything. So that's giving a lot of experience here. Why is it not coming? Why is it still 75%? See, it was still 75%, and then I was able to figure it out that there was a issue that the rerun we cannot work, and then we had to run it as a new run, and then now it worked. Okay. Any questions so far related to the unit testing? I thought of taking some of the enhancements or some of the information related to the visual force, and this itself took more than what we thought. I need to. I thought of telling something about the test suite. Thinking I don't want to. We are running out of time, but still, I'll take like 2 minutes. You go here, and we have explained all of these. We can even have like test suite. We can create a new suite. Like tell that hey, today's test as an example. As I told you before, the suite is the combination of multiple test classes. Like I can put this priority test here, and I can also put like temp convert test, whatever we did today. And then I can create it as save. And then I can go and run this new suite run. And then, today's suite, right? Just going to run this suite, today's test suite, and then run suite. It is going to run both the tests. So if you see it here, this will give us only, this will give us, this will give only these two tests. Temp convert, what we did, that is good. And the priority test, whatever we had, it failed. Okay. So this kind of things, this is like multiple tests coming into one suite. That's what it's called, test suite. In your project or in your future, you can write like multiple test classes to execute the individual test classes. Say, for example, if Pratap is working on one feature, Akshat is working on another feature, if Harain is working on another feature, you can just put together everything as a test suite, and then you can test everything together as a test suite. Okay. All right. With this, we'll be winding up the unit testing. And we already discussed about like it's not going to be persistent in the database, and the one other thing is like there will be like Apex code limit of like 6 MB. They'll be having it, but the test classes, annotated test classes with whatever the classes annotated with this test don't count towards this limit at all. So the Salesforce will not count the test classes to its limit of having like number of storage. And so if you have to answer Pratap's question in more clear, even though the test data is rolled back, there's no separate database is used for testing. They don't use any separate database. It's all the separate data. It's all the same database, but it will be rolled back immediately, and nothing is persistent in the database. Okay. So the reason being that if you're going to be in the insertion and all that, even the duplicate records will result in an error. So which means that proves us that technically nothing is going to be persistent in the database. Okay. Also, one of the key takeaways is like this test methods do not send any emails. Even if you just write the code to send any email or anything, it will not send any email. Okay. And the test methods will not make any callouts. We already discussed about the callout method. This will not make any test callouts to the external services. We cannot test the external services to the outside world. So these are the takeaways of the limitations of the test methods. Okay. All right. Hope I think you guys enjoyed. And in the next session, I'll be touching base related to the Visual Force. A little bit of Visual Force. We'll start off with the Visual Force, and then I'll also teach like what are other annotations that is available as part of the Apex. So now, so far, you're familiar with what is Apex class triggers and all this. The next we'll be covering in the Visual Force page, and we also covered like how to do the unit testing and all that. We have done enough testing and creating the suite and all these things. Hope all the things that whatever I taught today is useful and you're able to follow me. And any questions, just reach out to me anytime. Okay. Any questions so far before we can call it as a day? Any feedback?
It was good. It was very informative, Karthik.
Okay, cool. Hope you guys are enjoying my session, and we'll talk later. Good night. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Yeah, bye.